Hi, it's Paul Antonelli here. Welcome to another episode of the Ideal Business Podcast. It's just something recently that we've been playing with and we've been fiddling with a little bit in the business, which is an ongoing process. What I want to talk about today is the idea of creating an avatar, an ideal client avatar. Because of course, if you want to go about the process of building an ideal business, what better way to build an ideal business except with ideal clients? But then that sort of leads you into the question of what is an ideal client? What actually is an ideal client? How do you determine what an ideal client actually is? And how do you go about going through that process? So what I wanted to do today was just take you through a little bit of a process that we use for developing a methodology for creating an ideal client avatar. And what that really means is really, because one of the things we think about in our business is that basically anyone's a potential client, and that's just not true. The more focused and the more targeted we can be about the people that we want to bring into our business as clients and we want to help, the more likely you can attract them to your business. And so one of the reasons, and I'll start maybe with why would you do this process? One of the reasons behind this is to be able to use this information in your marketing, in your campaigns, in your messaging. And the best way to do that is to really understand the process of what your potential clients are thinking. What are they thinking? What are their concerns? What's going to motivate them to better understand what you offer, and and being able to help them see the value in that process. And when we work with clients, often we say, do you have a bit of a client avatar? And they say, yeah, we do. And it's typically not really an avatar, it's more like, I guess you'd describe it more like demographics. Our target group is male. Our target group is female. The average age is, 40 to 50. They're interested in these things. That's not really an avatar. An avatar is so detailed and so in depth that you should actually be able to meet that person and engage with that person. So it's like a real person. And I'll give you some examples of the way that we've used it. Obviously with InvisBiz, we have a client avatar, very detailed. Now the client avatar process, we've got a bit of a structure to how we do that. But typically what happens is you start with the understanding of what's the problem? What is it that your ideal client avatar, what's their problem? What's the problem that they have that you believe your product or service can actually resolve or can actually deal with? And often the mistake that we can make in business is going too wide with our avatar. And so if we look at, for example, and I might describe how we did this process. So in ResiCert, one of my businesses, we sell franchises for it's a property inspection business. And it's a 15-page avatar, very detailed avatar relating to the ideal client, the ideal franchisee for our business. And this 15 pages talks about everything, but a lot of it is relating to the emotional side of where people are sitting and what are they thinking, what issues do they have. And in this breakdown process, when we started doing the avatar, we'd been selling, never had this avatar from the beginning. It was something that we developed about 7 or 8 years ago. And so what we did was the start point for that, and this is something that you can do as well if you've been in business, is to actually look at all the past clients that you've had and group them and see if you can see a bit of a pattern. So for example, for us with our franchisees, we'd had a lot of franchisees that had entered the business. Some were fantastic, some were okay, some were not that great. And it built up a bit of a matrix, which is any information about them that we knew that we could map out. And so included things like, were they married, were they single, did they have kids, had they been in business before, what were their motivations, what about their backgrounds, where did they come from, sort of industry, all sorts of things. And what we found in doing this process is we're actually able to identify, and then we grouped all these past franchisees and current franchisees into brilliant, okay, and not so good. And in that process, we were able to basically look really and see a pattern. So we're able to see a pattern between the ones that were great franchisees, the ones that were okay, and the ones that weren't that great. And based on that, we started to build out a bit of an avatar. And the avatar goes through a number of different things. The first thing it sort of talks about is psychographics. And what that means is what's influencing them, what influences or people, what books do they read, what area of interests do they have, what are things in their life that are motivating them to do things. And part of that process is to really understand the avatar that you're looking to attract to your business, really trying to understand what they're going through. So some of the key things that we always look at are, for example, those sorts of influences. We try to identify the problem that they have, not just, if there's a problem. So typically, for example, we've got a couple of different avatars with the franchisees, but one of them we found was people in their late 30s, typically men in their late 30s, early 40s. They've been very successful in their career beforehand. Financially, they'd sort of managed to square themselves away a little bit, but they had young kids and they wanted to spend more time with their kids. And that was a big driver for them. And so they were a little bit frustrated in the sense that they've built up expertise and skills in an area, but found that it wasn't translating to them being able to spend time with people that they loved and their kids. And that became a really big driver. And so we found that was something that was important for us to be able to communicate. And also we looked at, when they're making a decision, who else is going to be involved in that decision-making process? And typically their partner. It's a big decision when you're looking at starting a new business, so their partner was involved in it. And so then we break down, we go through a process of looking at what are the concerns of their partner, what are the things that their partner is sort of potentially concerned about, the impact of that, on their thinking, how that's going to affect their decision making. So we go through that process. So typically what you need to understand with particularly major decisions, it's not just the person you're talking to, but it could also be their partner or other people in their lives that will have an impact on that decision making process. And then you go through a bit of a process of what's their nightmare outcome. So let's say, for example, for us, they go ahead and buy a business and enter into a business. What's the nightmare outcome? What are all the things that they're concerned about and their fears? And if it didn't go that well, what would it look like? And then we also go through a process of looking through the dream outcome. If it actually went really, really well, how would that look? What would that feel like? And so it's a bit of a process of, going through, and whilst, we believe that we make decisions on pragmatic issues and data, the reality is that most of us make decisions on emotion. And our emotions really affect our ability to determine if something's right for us. And we don't even know it consciously, but it is. And because we have a different background and we've got different experiences and we've had good things happen to us and bad things happen to us, this all gets stored with us and has an impact on the way we approach and we think about things. So this mapping process is something that I'd really encourage you to do. Whenever we look at any new business, or whenever we look at expanding a product or service within our businesses, the start point is to really build out and develop a detailed avatar. And what happens when you go into this process is, if you don't have the information, because it can be quite challenging, because what can happen is you can get into a bit of a process of starting to map this out and you go, well, I don't really know what they're thinking. They don't really know what their fears are. I don't understand their background. And so there's some research that's needed, and there's some process that you need to go through. Typically what will happen with marketing or lead generation activity, it comes down to the way the ads, the images that you use, the words, all these type of things. But if you really want your campaigns and your ads to work effectively, the key thing is to develop a really detailed avatar which can help you create a powerful offer to your clients. And that offer, the actual makeup of the offer, which is really aligned with the ideal client, will do most of the heavy lifting for you. And that's an important thing to understand. It will do most of the heavy lifting. So getting the client avatar and the information relating to it well defined is going to make your marketing process and your campaigns and how you build that out way more effective. And over the years, I've developed lots of different marketing companies and agencies, and very few of them actually going to this level of depth with the client avatar. They want to get into different messages and how different images and writing effective copy and all sorts of things, but actually missing that targeted process. Because what we're doing in business is, one is a bit of a shotgun approach where we're just firing off our messages everywhere. And the challenge that we have today is that there's so much noise and clutter out there that it becomes very difficult for us to be able to have impact. And so the opposite to that is being very clear about who your ideal client is, what your avatar looks like. And you might actually have 2 or 3 ideal clients. It's not just one. Typically you'd start with the one that's the perfect, or the ideal avatar, the one that will deliver the best benefits to your business and really resonates with your business. But over time you might actually find that you'll develop 2 or 3 different avatars, and they will have different messaging and different ads and different communications that you go to them, because their motivations may in fact be different. Even though it may be the same product or service, the reason why they're wanting to make change or what's motivating them. So just think about that. We've done this within our own businesses, and we always do this. We've done this with clients very effectively to help them target and generate leads to attract the right clients. We do this with the inspection business, even for inspection clients. Currently looking at a new business at the moment, and the first step that we want to define is our avatar. And another way of doing that is effectively going out with a survey, which is what we're doing at the moment, putting a survey out and finding out. So we've got some understanding around the avatar, but actually finding out if we're on track, if we actually have that well defined. So that's a bit of a process. I'd really encourage you to do a bit of research around the idea of creating an ideal client avatar. The benefits are immeasurable when you make this a standard practice of your business, and it can have so many positive impacts. So thanks for joining me in this Ideal Business podcast, all about creating and finding your ideal avatar for clients. And I look forward to catching up with you in the next Ideal Business podcast. Ciao for now.